Hello neighbors, it's Brad here at eTrailer, and today we're taking a look at the Blue Ox Patriot portable braking system on a 2021 Jeep Wrangler Unlimited. When it comes to flat towing your Wrangler, there's going to be 5 main required components that are going to be the absolute minimum to tow it down the road. Starting on the vehicle side, we have our base plate, and that's going to have the attachment point for our tow bar to connect between the towed vehicle and the RV. Going along with that, we have safety cables that'll keep it all together in case of an accidental disconnect. We also have a braking system and also diode wiring. A braking system is going to be required when flat towing your Wrangler, and breaking it down into 2 basic systems, you have a fixed braking system or a portable system like we have here, and both offer a little bit of pros and cons to each of them, but in terms of installation, this one's going to do a fantastic job of making it easy, and you can transport this from vehicle to vehicle also very easily. So if you have multiple vehicles in your fleet that you flat tow, you can get away with a second vehicle kit and transfer this from car to car. The downside is when you're not using this, you are going to have to store this somewhere, and when you're ready to flat tow, you're going to also have to set it up each time. Where your fixed system, once it's in place, you can just plug and go. But with that means a more heavy installation that might be out of your scope. Generally, that's going to be the hardest part of a flat tow setup on a vehicle, and this really eliminates a lot of that stress. Now, I mentioned the setup as kind of a drawback of a portable system, but it's pretty simple. Realistically, we're just going to clamp this down on the pedal. We'll plug in our 12 volt to our 12 volt outlet kit, which is something you're going to probably want to add in when doing a system like this. We'll then get our breakaway wire in place. We'll push the power button, the setup button, and then once it runs through its step, you should be good to go. I mentioned earlier that this is able to be transferred from vehicle to vehicle, whereas a fixed system, once it's installed, you can take it out, but there's a lot to take out to reverse it and put it into another vehicle. This is not the case with the portable system, because you have a breakaway switch that is going to be required that comes with it and then runs to the plug that plugs into the braking system. So if you had a second vehicle that you wanted to flat tow, you would just pick up a second vehicle kit, which is going to be that breakaway switch and that cable. You'll run that on your vehicle, make sure you have a 12 volt outlet to be able to power it up, and then you can transfer the box from one vehicle to the next and be ready to go. Now, with many braking systems, and ones in mine are going to be the fixed ones, there's always going to be an indication letting you know that the brakes are being applied. And there's a few different methods. A lot of times it's going to be an LED that sticks on the towed vehicle. So if you have a rear view camera, sometimes you can see it. Sometimes it's got glare, but you can always upgrade to a wireless system that transmits the signal to the dash on the RV into a monitor to let you know that the brakes are being applied. The great part about the Patriot is that's standard. This just plugs into a 12 volt outlet in your RV. It comes with a mounting spot to put this on your dash, and it acts like a heads-up display. So that way when you apply the brakes, it's going to show you that it's applying on here. But there's also a couple of cool features. You can adjust the force on the fly while driving, which you really don't get with a lot of other braking systems. So that's really nice. You can fine tune that. You can also adjust the brightness on here. So if you're driving at day or night, you can really see what it's doing. And also what's really cool is this brake button. It acts kind of like a brake controller, and that's really what your braking system is. But this is one of the only ones that has a manual override. So if it's getting a little squirrely back there and you just want to jab the brakes a little bit, you can simply push that brake button and it's going to apply the brakes on the towed vehicle. The breakaway switch that's included with the braking system is in case of a catastrophic disconnect, and you're going to find this on any braking system. So if everything was to fail and the vehicle was to separate from the RV, it'll pull this cable, and once that's popped, it's going to apply the brakes, and that's going to bring the vehicle to a stop. That way it's not rolling down the road. And now this is a pretty easy installation overall for the braking system. I do like this system if you are just occasionally towing. If you do it a few times a year, I really think it is a great option. The installation being cut down definitely helps, but if you are a flat tower that does it regularly or a full timer, I'd highly suggest looking at some of the fixed systems. I recommend the Demco Air Force One for coaches with air brakes, or the Demco Stay and Play Duo for electric over hydraulic or hydraulic brakes. But for all instances, really this can work for you, and it's going to do a great job of keeping you safe and legal while flat towing your Wrangler. So if you decide that this is the braking system that you want to go with on your Wrangler, follow along and I'll walk you through the steps to get it installed. The first step to getting this installed is getting your breakaway switch mounted up, and this is a requirement on any of the braking systems, and you want it in a spot that's easily accessible and it's going to be mounted straight and solid, because as this cable would pull in an emergency situation, you don't want that whole plug coming with it. So depending on your base plate, some of them will have some good mounting points for you to get that in place. We have a Kurt base plate today, which really doesn't give us any of those mounting points. So I was able to utilize a factory 8mm bolt on the bottom of the bumper. On Jeeps, there's plenty of different places you can mount it up. So it's really up to you. Just make sure that it's solid and facing towards the front. Now this breakaway switch is a little bit different than some of the other braking systems with the plug style, but it makes for a really easy time because as far as the installation, it's really just attaching this cable and running it inside. So this will just simply plug in together. And I recommend, since this is on the front of the vehicle, just taking some electrical tape and wrapping it around just to kind of prevent any water from getting in that connection. We'll then take this portion of the breakaway plug and start routing it up into the engine bay and through the firewall. To route the cable, I just followed along the base plate and zip tied it up. And on the Wranglers, it's nice and open in the wheel well area. So if you run this up and tuck back the wheel well liner, you'll be able to pull that up. And our whole goal is to get it to the grommet that's located on the right of the brake booster. And it's just a plastic cap that we're going to drill a hole through to pass that inside. So make sure it's large enough for that plug. Also, you're going to be running a 12-volt outlet kit at the same time, so you might want to run that wire through there as well. We used a Demco 12-volt outlet kit, which I highly recommend. That way you can get power to your braking system. Once routed through, eventually you might want to go back with some RTV silicone on that where we passed through in the grommet and just seal that up so water doesn't go through there long term. And the rest of it comes down to setting up the Patriot in the footwell of the Jeep. And pretty easy. It's going to just clamp around the brake pedal, and the spring-loaded action makes that easy. So this is out of the box how it's set up. They do come with extra clamps, but on the Wrangler, these actually work great. So what you'll do is just pull this up. That's going to allow you to slide this over the pedal. Once in place, you can push this tab. It's going to lock around the pedal, and that's how it's going to actuate that when in use. But it does need resistance on the back side to be able to push that pedal. So setting this up properly the first time is going to help you for every other time that you do the flat toe. So first thing, you're going to want to take your floor mats out. You don't want anything that's going to cause this to not have grip or cause it to not brake properly. Get that around just as I showed you. And this backing part will rest against the seat, and that's how it gets the pressure to push the pedal. And there is some adjustment here with this turn knob. So you just loosen this up, and that's going to allow you to raise this up to the height of the seat. And it's going to rest in this portion. We will be moving the seat to accomplish that, but normally on the Jeeps, you can raise this up a decent amount and fine tune it from there. There's also adjustable feet on the bottom that's going to allow you to adjust accordingly. Especially on Wranglers, it works out because the footwell is not completely even sometimes. So that's going to get you to be able to dial this in. So as I raise this kind of in position, rested against the seat, I realize that we're still a little bit low. We'll extend these feet out by just turning these counterclockwise. The arm you want as parallel as possible to the floor. Once it starts actuating, it is going to want to move around a little bit, and that's kind of pretty natural on these. But the main thing is it has that resistance to be able to push against the seat. So this looks fairly decent. So what I'll do is plug in our breakaway. Our 12-volt outlet I have mounted up in the footwell, so we'll grab the power source from the braking system and plug that in. And with that plugged in, we'll make sure that it works by pushing the power. And you can see that cycling back and forth. You can push the setup button and it'll run through its paces to get it dialed in. And once it's content, it's good to go. But you can see as this drops down, it's gonna rest like this. So I am gonna make some more adjustments to get this to where it goes back to a little bit normal state. Now, something else, if you do see that it's pushing red, that's because I put pressure, and you don't want this to constantly push the brake pedal and cause dragging or the taillights to come on. So if you're seeing this, you're just gonna wanna give it a little bit more room to where that actuator can actually extend out, and that'll take care of that portion. Once you make adjustments, just go through the same process of powering it on and hitting the setup button. Make sure that it works properly. Something else that you're gonna wanna test before hitting the road is pull the breakaway switch, and this should apply the brakes on the vehicle. With that tested and working properly, you've officially installed the Blue Ox Patriot on your 2021 Jeep Wrangler Unlimited.